It's a regular meeting to order the City Commission of Rio Grande City. It is Wednesday, June 24th, 2020, approximately 6:03 p.m. And it's a virtual meeting. At this time, we have the invocation by Commissioner Jones, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Ramirez.
Moorhead. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to get together today to conduct city business. I ask for you to guide us to make the right decisions for the residents of Rio Grande City. I ask you to bless our law enforcement, all our city employees, and protect us from this COVID-19 dilemma that we're going through. Again, I ask us to guide us, Lord, and on making the best decisions for the residents of Rio Grande City. And all this I ask for you. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God and indivisible.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Ramirez. Next business and orders, item 1B, roll call and finding of quorum. Ms. Garza?
Yes. Mayor Villarreal,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Garza. Not here. Commissioner Flores. Not here. Commissioner Ramirez
Here.
and Commissioner Jones. We don't have a quorum yet since we do not have
Well, we
Mr.
do have a
Garza.
quorum.
Let me see. Well, yes, with yourself.
Yeah, there's three of us.
Yes. We have a quorum. Let me see if he's on.
Okay, so for the record, we do have a quorum. We have Commissioner Ramirez, Commissioner Jones, and
Jones and the mayor.
Thank you. Next business and order, and we'll wait for the commissioners. They should be
Yes.
joining us shortly. Next item is 1C, public forum. Did anyone sign up for public forum? Ms.
No,
Garza?
sir.
Okay, for the
No,
record,
sir.
one signed up for public forum. Next business and orders, item D, departmental reports.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We've got a couple of reports. Like to recognize Hector and his staff. They've been working diligently, of course, since after the rains and cleaning up the city. But most recently, they've been at the 14 acres for the end of month cleanup. Hector, would you like to talk about that?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Council.
Good
We'll
evening.
be there for the whole week. We're gonna be there till Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Anything you all like to let the public know that they can go and throw their bulky materials or whatever they have, like trash or tires for household.
Okay. Thank you, Hector.
Thank you, Mr. Barrera. And just to make a point, I went out there on Tuesday. Myself and my son, we took advantage of this opportunity to get out and drop off some of the items. And the program is excellent. You just go in, show your driver's license or a bill, and you can drop off items in these roll-offs. We're able to take advantage of this, and we dropped off some mattresses and some other stuff that we had in the house. So for the residents, it's available the last week of the month, and it's an excellent program where you can take some of these items yourself, bulky items, to the Eisenhower 14 acres. And it's a wonderful opportunity to keep our city clean, and at the same time, it's a do-it-yourself opportunity for those that want to take that time to take these items over there, including tires. I believe 4 tires per household, and we'll dispose of those, cut them up, and other bulky items as well. So that way we can continue to assist keeping our city clean. So for the public, feel free to go out there. It's the last week of the month, and it's from 9:30 to 6, I believe, or 6:30. But you can take advantage. Thank you, Mr. Barrera, for making that an opportunity, Mr. Perez. It's an excellent program to help keep our city clean.
Yes, for the note, it's from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, so 9 to 6.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Hector.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Cantu. Mr. Cantu's come back recently, recovering from some illness, but now he's working on the budget. He started the process, and he also probably has an update also on some funds that just came in from the CARES Act. Is that correct, Mr. Cantu? We can't hear you, Mr. Cantu.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Yeah, like Mr. Perez was saying, I've already started the process on the budget for next year. I was out for 2 weeks. I'm back, so I started the process on Monday. We're gonna take a different approach this year. I guess it's kind of unpredictable as far as to what's gonna happen with this COVID, how much sales taxes we're gonna get. So what I'm gonna do this year is I'm gonna pretty much work on everybody's budget, every department, based on the revenues that we project are gonna come next year, and then of course if we go and get the bonds, we're gonna have to budget to make those payments for those bonds. So it's gonna be kind of a tight year. So I want to first of all just go through all the essential expenditures for every department and make sure everybody gets those. And after that, I'll sit down with every department and see what their wish list is or their needs. And then hopefully we can accommodate whatever is most needed. And like Mr. Perez said, we did receive today in the bank $165,000. That's a 20% down payment on the COVID grant that San Martin was working on. I know it took a little bit longer than expected, but we finally got that money in. So that money is available in the bank already. We're continuing to monitor the expenditures that are being done for anything that's COVID related, so we could submit for reimbursement. I know Mr. Perez is going to be working with Alinda and see what kind of grants we can work on for the businesses, local businesses, and then see how much money is going to be left after that, so we can work and see what else we can, what other expenditures, or how we can help the community, and then ask for reimbursement on those payments. As far as this year's budget, I think every department is doing very well. Every department is staying within budget. Everybody got limited over the last couple of months with this COVID that came about us. So everybody's doing a great job in monitoring their expenditures and just holding back on anything that's not essential for now. So every department is looking good. I think I project that at the end of the year we should be looking at another surplus that's going to be building up on our fund balance, even some more. So hopefully we get to our 3-month cushion that we need in there. If not, it's going to be very close. But we'll see. We'll see where we stand at the end of the year. I know we still got a couple of months to go, and hopefully nothing drastic or major comes about, and we can finish the year strong.
And Mayor, that fund balance that we keep pushing for, obviously is part of the plan and policies that we put together to build it up accordingly.
And let's keep that in mind and operating with that premise that we have to consider a tight budget, considering everything that we've spent thus far COVID related. Just making sure that we continue on that track, and as we plan for next year's budget, also that in mind, so that way we're operating most efficiently and effectively. And I'm going back to every department to operate with that philosophy, that premise in mind, that it's going to be tight. We need to make sure that we consider what's necessary and what is not, and operate with that point of view in mind, so that way we can make sure we get out of this cleanly, or as most effectively as possible, considering all the expenditures we've had thus far, unexpected expenditures we've had thus far related to COVID-19. So, and again, we can't stress that enough. Okay, so
Okay.
as we prepare for the budget, that we can have a workshop, and the next few weeks, let's have a workshop, and that way we can start hammering the details of it and making sure that all the needs are being met. We have a big year ahead of us, considering with the certificates of obligations and all these major projects that we're beginning to at least come to fruition, and some of them getting started. So let's see, we need to this year absolutely be essentially need to hammer out all the details of this budget coming forward next year. Any thoughts on that, Commissioner Ramirez, Commissioner Jones?
No, Mayor, I think we discussed all the things and projects that are priority, I guess, for all the departments. And, I look forward to working with the department and the administration to see those, projects come to fruition.
All right, Commissioner, quick question on the, Mayor.
Yes.
Can you touch bases again on that 165,000? What is it primary going to be used for?
Okay.
Well, those are expenditures, Commissioner, that are used for COVID. Upfront, I guess San Martin is there. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but the 20% comes in. I guess the way this worked was we're getting based on population. I think it was $55 per head on the population on the city. That ended up being like $800,000. 20% of that came up front, and that's to help us cover the expenditures that we incurred due to COVID-19. And then any additional expenditures that we have, aside from those, we have to submit reimbursements, and they're covered all the way up until 800 and some thousand. I don't know the exact amount, but it was based on the population. Again, it was $55 per resident. On the census, I believe it was like 15,000 on the population that was for the city. So that's what that's for. Pretty much, it just helps us cover all the expenditures that we've already incurred due to COVID-19, and then whatever else comes about. Like I said, Mr. Perez is gonna get with Alinda and see if there's any type of grants that we could help the local businesses, because everybody took a big hit. So there's a list of how we can use those expenditures, that money for.
Yeah, I've had a couple of businesses. I have a couple of businesses that have reached out to me to see if we're gonna have some sort of help, especially those businesses that have been closed down for the past 2 to 3 months due to the COVID. But they were reaching out just to see if we're gonna be able to help them out in whichever way to be able to pay the tax this year.
We're working together with San Martin and trying to come up with some type of grants for those businesses, whatever's allowable. I guess Mr. Perez is going to work on those details with Dalinda and see what we can come up with.
So Dalinda, Ms. Guillen's already working on a proposal that we'll be presenting to you guys, commissioners and the mayor, to approve going forward as to how we're going to assist the businesses.
And keep in mind that we've had a lot of expenses too within the testing that we did for all the staff, and security for testing sites, and several other measures that we took in place. So make sure we have all that in line, Mr. Perez, and then whatever else at that point in consideration, but potentially having something. But before we start any rumors that, okay, let's make sure we have it, that we're working on a plan, and there is an opportunity that, yes, there might be some assistance, not complete yet as far as how we're going to proceed with it, but until we determine all the potential avenues, and at that point we'll take necessary steps if allowed to proceed with something like that. Okay.
And Mr. Hollis, he's online right now with Frank. They could probably elaborate a little bit more as to what's allowable. If you don't mind, Mr. Hollis, just talking a few minutes about what we can use it for.
Certainly, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to the council and mayor and staff. I appreciate this opportunity. I have with me, as you know, Frank Martin, our associate, has been working very closely with your staff and with the finance department and all your departments. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and handle this subject over to Frank. Frank?
Just the funds were able to get reimbursed for expenses that happened since March 1st, which includes, payroll of people that were working because of COVID, police, fire staff that was dedicated to that, the testing, any personal protective equipment that was purchased, any food bank items that were given out. So it pretty much these funds, you go back to March 1st, which are eligible expenses. We'll get reimbursed for that, which we got 20% up front to help the city just have kind of like a revolving amount that it can use for further expenses that we'll spend, which it can include small business grants. They can include purchasing equipment for the office workers to work from home, more testing. So it's really, there's a long list that the Texas Department of Emergency Management, along with the Treasury, have put out. And it's really working with the city manager, the finance, the EDC. My recommendation is to identify the funds that you've already spent and get that money back first. And then also at the same time moving forward and see what help you guys can offer to the community and also what needs are there for the city. So that's just a little bit about the program. I know I've been working with Mr. Perez, and we're going to continue working on this till we pretty much close out the funds.
So the expenses that we had for PPE, of course, that'd be included, as you mentioned, Dean, as you mentioned, hours of operation for employees that did extra work for anything COVID related. But that same thing goes for any businesses that spent PPE as well. Would that be part of potential grants, or that's not included?
No, unless the city purchased it and gave it to the business. Now the city can do a program along that's along those routes. Okay. But it's kind of just talking and seeing what you guys want to do.
Okay. Well, Mr. Perez, Ms. Guillen, y'all can, Mr. Cantu can take a look at all that and then proceed with a I guess looking at the project itself and what it is. Devise some of a plan, and we'll go ahead and consider it.
Yes, sir. Next up is Ms. Guillen and Ms. Beas. I don't know if they can just give you a couple of minutes update on the St. Ives, because we've had a couple of major milestones being completed.
Go ahead.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is Dalinda.
Hello, Ms. Guillen.
As we reported during our EDC meeting last week, we're nearly complete with the groundwork at the site. A walkthrough inspection with our engineers and contractors was held last week. The validation of dirt that was removed from the creek is in progress. The next step is to certify the fill on the development and apply for the partial closure. And of course, the users are locked in for phase 1. Some of those have plans already in place with our planning office, pending permits, and others are requesting those city specifications. But everything's moving along very quickly, and we're almost there at putting in our first shovel on the ground.
Excellent news.
And that's it, unless somebody else has something that we didn't talk about. Anyone else? We're good, Mayor.
Mayor, real quick, just wanted to get an update on who's the one keeping an eye to make sure that the gravel is being compacted the way that it is so we can be able to make sure that we don't get any potholes in the near future. In that subdivision, Rattler Drive.
The engineers have to verify the compaction in the process. So the same thing goes for the dirt itself. Before that we sign off, they have to meet a compaction rate that they have to pass. So every step of the way, whether it's a road or the actual pads where the stores are going to be, has to go through a testing process.
Who's signing off on it, Mr. Perez?
Ms. Bass could probably elaborate better than I can on that.
Commissioner Jones, Mayor, good evening.
Hello, Ms. Reyes.
The contractor has a testing company and they do the compaction. They just did the subgrade and they started laying out the caliche. The subgrade has already passed, and as they lay down the caliche and they're compacting, they will be submitting their test results. I have asked them that whenever they start taking core samples that we be called so we are present. I've asked them for copies of the results also. So as they move forward, they cannot go on like to the next step until they prove that it has passed all the compaction tests.
Okay. So the question though is, who signs off? I'm assuming it's our engineers, city engineers have to clear it that everything is good since it is our street.
That is correct. So in the specifications, it calls for certain PI density and compactions. So as those results come in, they compare them to the specifications and signs off to move on to the next step in the paving.
Okay. And as far as just to be clear on the drainage there, Ms. Baez, will there be any, at this point, the drainage will be going, or most of it will be draining out, or should I say 99% of it should be draining out to Los Olmos Creek through Rattler Drive and some of the drainage plan that we have. However, any runoff towards 83 will be taken care of there at the entrance, or where would they place a proper drain so that way none of that water goes into 83?
So some water will go to 83, but the majority will be graded to go to Rattler Drive. When they do the site plans for each individual lot, they will have a drainage plan, and then there most of them will probably use what are like grates in their parking lots, capture that water and connect to the storm sewer. So that's where most of the drainage will go. When the recent rains came in, they saw that the rain was already flowing towards the creek. That's why you could see them in the erosion. You all saw the street that's the access. It is only at the beginning where it kind of meets the Highway 83, and then it goes towards the north, towards Rattler Drive. It slopes down.
Will it have something there, for example, in the other development by Jack in the Box and Kentucky Fried Chicken, right there at that intersection, there's like a grate, and I guess the water just flows into that before heading out to 83. Will we be having something like that, similar to that over here? Just to make sure.
The only thing I saw was the inverted on the axis of the street, but I didn't see any break in the plans.
Okay. All right. Anything else,
Okay.
Mr.?
I've got one more. I think Chief Castillo, we wanted to kind of touch base with all of you about the setting up or formalizing the coordination meetings for any food distribution or vegetable distribution or whatever kind of distribution within the city limits. Chief Castillo, you on?
Yes, Mr. Perez, this is Chief Castillo, Mayor, City Commission. How you all doing this evening? Yes, well, it's hopefully we'll get some rain, right? The regarding the traffic that we've had in the past with the distributions of food and the other ongoing things that people want to give right now at this point, and that's really good. We have no problem with that. We just wanted to see if we can have some coordination meetings for the traffic control and the events. I know that the people right now need as much help as we can give them in any form that we can. But if we get a little bit of more coordination a few days ahead of time, The events have been very successful, and there's been a lot of traffic. And what happens is we just need to make sure that we have EMS and fire can get in if that's the case, and where the traffic is going to be directed in those events. It's important because we've had a couple of calls when we've had those events, and we had to kind of scramble to get to them. But that's my end on that. It's just the safety of the people that are there, and if something happens inside wherever the event is taking place, it's gonna be hard to get in there. So the recommendation would have been some coordinating meetings a few days before, just to make sure that we have the personnel to actually cover it very to the point that it's not going to get dangerous.
And when you say coordination meetings, what are you referring to? So, for example, any distribution on 83, are we talking mainly 83 or anywhere in city limits?
I'm talking mainly on 83, Mayor, because that's where the congestion gets really, really bad. The last one we had at the school, I think it was past San Antonio Street, and it did cause a big traffic jam there. And we don't want to turn people away, having to push them straight, but we had no choice because we had the turning lane that was full all the way past, I think, the substation. So we want to see if we could coordinate that to a location, or maybe so it could be safer. I know that the fire truck was trying to get through there, and they couldn't get through there. So we've had a couple of incidents when that's happened, and there's some other events that have taken part there in different areas of the city, and we just want to make it a safer way to do things. It's not about not doing the event; it's just doing it a little bit with a little bit more coordination and planning, and make sure it's done safe.
Now, do we need, if we're going to move in that direction, is that something we can just do procedurally, Mr. Perez, or do we need to pass some type of ordinance moving forward that on any type of distribution or any type of giveaways that there must be a coordination meeting? Mr. Villarreal, what do we need to do there if we're going to move in that direction moving forward?
We can't hear you, Mr. Villarreal.
Can't hear you, Mr. Villarreal.
Well, in any event, Mayor, if we want to make it a requirement, we're probably going to have to sit down with legal as to how we require everyone that's going to do anything along 83 just to formalize it. Otherwise, if it's not required, some may come to the table to discuss what they're planning to do in advance, and some may not.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, and again, not to try to remove any events from happening, simply is how do we coordinate with them to make sure that we minimize any impact that it's going to have on traffic flow or potential traffic issues there, or just accidents or whatnot. So that's something that I would be okay with. Commissioners, how do you all feel about that? What are y'all's thoughts?
Mayor, just again, just to kind of reiterate what Chief Castillo said, I think it's important that there's a process, and I'm sure Mr. Perez can handle that internally to where there's the coordination meetings with whoever's involved to make sure that the traffic control issues or personnel or whatever the case may be is taken care of beforehand. So again, I think it's something that should be taken care of internally. If we need to go further with that, then we can discuss it further. But I think Mr. Perez can probably take care of that internally.
Okay. Jones? Any thoughts, Commissioner Jones? Any? And here?
I honestly think, Mayor, if they're gonna continue doing it at the Fort Ringo, I don't have a problem it being conducted there. By now, whoever is coordinating it should be able to know how many vehicles, are being given merchandise to, food. So there's no reason to have this big line outside and having to turn away 100, 200 cars, towards the end, By now, we should be able to know the merchandise that we have, if we're giving it to 300, 400 vehicles, you got to cut it off. So you won't make that line all the way to San Antonio anymore. So it's got to be better coordinated. That's all I say.
Well, then that's what the coordination means. So Chief, Mr. let's look into all that, see what we need to do. Then we'll have us something in place and we can educate the public as to how we're gonna do any type of potential situations that might create traffic control problems and how we can coordinate beforehand. And that way we can make sure that when the event happens, that it runs smoothly or as smoothly as possible and it doesn't affect any potential hazards or create any potential hazards or any of those situations that might occur. So go ahead and take the lead on.
Mayor, for the record, Mayor, for the record, Mayor, I just want to add that, and I know you, because whenever we get invited to those coordination meetings, I include yourself, Mr. Perez, and our two chiefs for those coordination meetings, along with Commissioner Garza as well too, because I know he's the chief of police for the school district, and they're the ones that oversee Fort Ringgold Center. So as far as that operations goes, I know there's been multiple coordination meetings. I know text messages are sent out about the coordination meetings. I haven't attended all of them. I know there's been a representative from our office that's attended them. But as far as coordination meeting goes, before all those events are held, for those specific events, I know that we've made sure we've tried to have as many coordination meetings up to the event as possible. Now, as far as traffic goes, we're just there to assist with the distribution. Everything that goes on outside, I know Commissioner Garza handles with his department, along with obviously the county and the city's assistance. So, but there are coordination meetings between all three entities that are held prior to those operations being done.
Okay. Well, and the thing here is that it's not just for that distribution, it's for any distribution in general. Because whether it's giving out of chicken plates or whether it's giving out watermelons or whether it's whatever, if it's going to cause a potential conflict in reference to transportation or traffic control issues within 83, then it'd be wise to have, like I said, a coordination meeting and then proceed with how can we alleviate the issue and still have the event, because we don't want to shut it down either, because if people are giving away, especially ways that involve helping out the community, we want to have them. We just want to make sure that they're done in a professional, efficient, and effective way. So, and again, that goes for any type of distributions or giveaways or any of that nature. Let's look into that and learn from the past. How can we make it better? But again, nothing having to do with just one specific distribution, is in general.
Yes, sir. That's it.
And Mayor Calixto Villarreal, I apologize. They left me alone with this apparatus, and I'm trying to figure it out. So I called in. I did hear Commissioner Ramirez, and this is something that can be worked internally within the city and the PD. Okay. I don't believe this is an issue that needs to be addressed through any policy making or ordinances passed by the city. So I think coordinating the way it was just explained by everyone is something that should be able to handle it. Because if not, you're going to get into some problems when they have church events or other nonprofit entities having meetings or events, and so it's going to create some chaos. But working it internally is the best way.
Okay, and look into it, Mr. Perez, along with the chiefs and the department heads, and see how we can make it better.
Okay.
Any other department?
That's it.
No, we're good. All right, moving on. We have item 2, consent agenda. Letter A, approval of minutes from previous meetings. Letter B, approval of action taken at the meeting of the RGC-EDC board held on June 18, 2020. Should have received it in your packet, and if you're ready, then we're ready to entertain a motion at this time for the consent agenda.
If there are no questions or concerns, Mayor, on items 2A and B, I also move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item consent agenda 2A, 2B by Commissioner Ramirez. Have a second?
Second, Mayor.
Commissioner Jones seconded. Any further discussion? None? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, raise your left hand. Motion passes. At this time, if there's no objection, we'll move up to item 6C and 6D because we have guests with us. No objection. Okay, we'll move on to item 6B, starting with consideration and approval of an authorization of an interlocal cooperation agreement between the City of Rio Grande City and the Rio Grande City Economic Development Corporation.
Mayor, I'll let Mr. Tijerina speak in reference to that. I think we also have Mr. Dan Martinez on the line.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Pettis, and staff. For the record, Robert Tijerina with Tijerina, Galvan, and Lawrence. We are the city's financial advisor. And as Mr. Pettis stated a few seconds ago, Mr. Dan Martinez, bond counsel for the city, is also in attendance in the meeting. And this interlocal agreement is between the city and the EDC, pretty much agreeing that a portion of the debt, about $1,700,000 of the overall 17 and change, is going to be paid back by the EDC. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Martinez, and he'll describe the agreements and the payments and the terms. Mr. Martinez?
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Dan Martinez with Windsor PC. Hope everyone's safe, and thank you for allowing me to visit with you this evening. Mr. Tijerina mentioned, part of this process, I know you guys as the leaders of the city have been working closely with the membership of the EDC and Ms. Guillen as well in terms of moving forward with these projects. So as you guys have been discussing over time, there's been discussions and agreements. And I think the EDC had their meeting last week where they moved forward with this plan of finance and their commitment to share these costs for these projects as you guys have outlined in the prior meetings, et cetera. So this interlocal memorializes that agreement or that commitment from the EDC, so they would transfer on an annual basis their portion of their debt service payments that we have, that Mr. Guillen provided relative to those projects we mentioned. It's approximately about $1.7 million. And so this document or this interlocal agreement is between the two entities, of course, to again memorialize that commitment, so that we will allow the finance staff and the city manager to have that revenue available to pay that portion of the debt service that comes due on an annual basis. And so the EDC, as I mentioned last week, held a meeting. They committed to or formalized that commitment. I know a few of you are on the board as well. And they'll come back at their next meeting to adopt that interlocal as well. But it's, again, basically to formalize that commitment and to make their portion of the debt service payment. And I can take any questions.
The interest rate is 2.51%.
Yes, sir. Mayor Vidal, absolutely. The interest rate locked in, fixed for 20 years, 2.51%. And the average annual payment over the 18-year period, the life expectancy of the EDC projects, is about $118,000.
Better interest rate than expected, by the way.
Absolutely, Mr. Vidal. And I think this is a great indication of, one, what the city's done with the finances, the leadership there on the council, and sticking to the rules and saving for a rainy day, planning everything out, plus being in the market at the right time. You had two good underwriting firms that raised the capital, sold the bonds and raised the capital for these projects. So it was a lot of good things that all fell into place at one time.
Excellent, excellent news for Rio Grande City and the next phase of multiple projects that we have in place. And this is definitely a great news for the city and the residents as to, again, lock in such a great interest rate at this time. And it took multiple entities and departments to make this happen. So thank you for making that possible and assisting in through that, Mr. Perez. Thank you, sir. I know it's excellent news. Like I said, I was expecting a 3-point-something, but 2.51, that is definitely excellent moving forward as far as the major projects.
This was a team effort, Mayor. I think everybody did their part, starting with, of course, our finance department and the staff, catching up on the audits, moving forward, working with Standard & Poor's through Tejerina, and of course, bond counsel, everybody pulled together. Timing was probably perfect timing. I am surprised at the rate. I was expecting closer to 3, but it's one of those things that everything came together due to everybody's efforts. So, the policies that you guys supported going into place, going forward, that making sure the fund balances continue to grow. So now we have to keep working. Of course, we were looking for a better rating than an A, but considering the pandemic issues that we've had and the impact on the economy, the drop in sales tax and the increasing on the unemployment, some of those factors didn't really help us. But because we were steadily doing our part behind the scenes in ensuring the city is financially stable, that made a big difference in the process. So, but this it's thanks to everyone involved along the way, made a big difference.
As far as timelines at this point, once we approve this, I'm looking at the timetable here. So today, regular schedule approve the obligations, and then by Monday, print and distribute final official statement, and then closing July 23rd, which would be this week.
Next month, Mayor, July the 23rd.
I mean, July 23rd, my mistake, yeah.
No problem. Yes, sir. Mr. Cantu, Mr. Perez will provide us with the bank account information on where the funds are going to be deposited, and then roughly 17.2 million if item number 4 under the ordinance is approved. 17.2 million roughly is going to be deposited into the account that Mr. Perez and Mr. Cantu set up on behalf of the city.
Fantastic. Any other questions, commissioners, for Mr. Martinez or Mr. Tejerina on this?
No, Mayor, I think all those questions were answered the last time that we met, and I'm confident and I'm thankful to all the staff and everybody working together to make this projects come to fruition. I think there's going to be a lot of great things being done with this money, and I mean, it's a great time to do it. Great interest rates, and again, we expect a little bit higher, but we're happy to get 2.51. And again, thank you to everybody involved.
All right, with that, Commissioner Jones, anything else you would like to add before we? No?
Just excellent job, Mr. Tejerina. Keep up the good work, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Mr. Jones. Thank you so much.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion at this time for item 6C.
That's a move, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Ramirez.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, raise your left hand. Motion passes. Next item was 6D, discussion and possible action to amend the professional service agreement with Hollis, Rutledge and Associates.
Mayor and Commissioners, as you're aware, you just heard that we received a 20% payment from the CARES Act process. And thanks to Mr. Hollis and his staff, we're able to secure those funds because they helped us in putting the application together. With their expertise and background, obviously, we were successful in getting those funds, getting started with those funds. So now there's a proposal on the table for you guys to consider. Because of the type of funds that we're having to deal with, and you heard there's some requirements that have to be met in order for those funds to be spent by the city and reimbursed to the city. I want to make sure that we have somebody on staff, doesn't have to be within the city, but maybe under Hollis's group, to support us in making sure we're making the right decisions every step of the way, and that we don't misspend these monies that are federal funds that are very delicate. Mr. Hollis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Perez. Thank you, Mayor, members, council, for the opportunity to be here. As expressed already by your city manager, these are funds that are federal funds that have been designated to the city by the Treasury through the state government that obviously includes a volume of rules and regulations to be able to meet, so that at the end of the day, we are able to make sure that we meet those obligations and those terms and conditions, and have no findings, especially audit findings. And this is where we come in to make sure we're there to administer those funds in accordance to federal and state guidelines that have been imposed to the city of Ribbon City, referencing this specific funding. And with that, I will gladly it now to Frank San Martin, who has been working very closely with the city manager, with the finance director, and other members of the staff to elaborate further. Frank?
Yes, Mayor, Commissioners, we will help with pretty much the management and administration of this whole project. We will make sure that what we're requesting is eligible for reimbursement. We will make sure that the funds all get, that the city is able to use all the funds by the deadline, and help with the reimbursement process, the record keeping process, everything that just administration of these funds. Pretty much with the funds, they allow up to 5% to be used for administration. So you guys got awarded about 827,000, 5% is 40 some. We're only asking for half of that. We want you guys to still use as much as you can for the city. And at the same time, these funds will allow us to be able to have the staff where we continue to work on the other projects that we're still working with the city, including like the COPS grant that was just awarded, and the border zone grant for the fire department that was awarded a few months ago. We still have drainage projects that we're working on, and this CARES Act, as you know, it's a lot of work, and we also need the staff support for that. So these funds will help with that. So I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Just to be clear on that, would this cost administrative fees or administrative charge, let's say, would that also come from the grant? Just to be clear.
Yes, it will all come from the CARES Act grant.
Perfect. Any questions, commissioners, on that? And I think we are going to need that assistance to make sure that we're in compliance and that we're not, we're making sure that we're doing it the right way and ensuring that have somebody on board that can help us and assist us and has the expertise to proceed with all that. So recommendation, Mr. Perez, is to proceed with that, commissioners.
Yes, I agree. Hollis, congratulations to you and your staff. You guys are doing an excellent job. This money comes in very handy at the right time, especially during this, COVID-19 pandemic. So again, thank you for your help. And yes, Mayor, I agree totally. And if we're ready for a motion, then I'll motion to approve.
Yes, so we ready for a motion? We have a motion to approve, Commissioner.
I second it, man.
Yes, Mayor, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Ramirez. We have a second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay. All those opposed, raise your left hand. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hollis, and look forward to utilizing all these funds and helping us with all this global pandemic.
As always, Mr. Hollis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now he can start working on the airport expansion.
Always, Mr. Hollis. Keep up the great work, sir.
In fact, I've been talking to Joyce Camilla, and I've been talking to Henry Cuellar's office, and we have some research already that we want to convey to Mr. Perez, the City Council, in short order relative to the airport project.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And with that, since we still have Mr. Tijerina and Mr. Martinez here, if no one objects, we'll be moving to item 4A. Which is consideration and approval of ordinance authorizing the issuance of City of Rio Grande City, Texas combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation, Series 2020, a purchase contract and a paying agent register agreement, providing for the sale of such obligations, approve final terms of the obligations, and approving all other matters related thereto.
Thank you, Mayor Bedial. Commissioners and staff, for the record, Robert Tijerina with Tijerina, Galvan, and Lawrence. Also with me this evening, we have in the audience is Mr. Dan Martinez in the Zoom audience, bond counsel for the city. There is a presentation that I believe the city secretary, Melissa, handed out, and it's the final pricing results on the combination tax and revenue certificates obligation series 2020. If you turn to page 3, we listed all the projects that Mr. Perez, Mr. Cantu provided us with back on February, actually early April, when we took action on this. The commission took action on this on, let's see, April the 22nd. The total amount was $17,210,610.25. And there was a portion that broke out into thirds, roughly $13,068,000 and change was pretty much what we called the general fund INS tax rate portion. The EDC, as we talked about earlier, was 1.7 million and change. And we had 2.4 million under the PUD. And again, that totaled out to 17.2. The bonds sold quickly yesterday. We sold the bonds yesterday. And of course, today it's for final approval. If this item is approved, everything is said and done and we close, as we talked about earlier, 30 days from now, roughly. On the right-hand side of page 3, we have the sources and uses. And the key amount here under the uses is the project fund deposit. On July the 23rd, the city will receive, if this item is approved, $17,210,610 to do all the projects listed on the left-hand side of this presentation. Below that, we have the cost of issuance, underwriters discounts, the insurance premium, which was AGM. Purchasing that insurance premium allowed the city to go from an A through Standard & Poor's rating through an insured AA bond rating. So again, every little bit helped, meaning, in other words, we were able to lower the interest rate on the overall financing. And as Mayor, as you stated earlier, the interest rate is locked in and fixed at 2.51%. This information I'm about to go over was provided by Siebert, Mr. Geraldo Perez. He's locally from Mission, around the area. He's an underwriter with Siebert, the underwriting firm, the lead underwriter. All the bonds were purchased by pretty much 10 institutional investors. Some of them were bond funds, insurance funds, banks that they purchased all these bonds. And again, they raised the capital. So again, 10 institutional investors were the ones that raised up roughly 17.2 million. And again, this was provided by the lead underwriter, Siebert, Williams, and Shank, Mr. Geraldo Perez. If you go to the following page, the next page, this is the tax rate impact analysis. The only thing that changed here from April the 22nd is on column B and C, row 12, the property values, they did slightly go up based on the preliminary values that you received from the appraisal district back in April, 520 million. So it's an increase of about 1.8 instead of the projected 3% we're looking at. So again, the next column D and the rest of the information is the city's existing debt and the current INS tax rate for this fiscal year on column L, row 11 of 9.55 cents. So if you turn to the next page, on this page is where we show the principal and interest on the 17 million that we sold on column E. The interest rate on row 103, column E, 2.51%. We're expecting about a 3.02%, but again, a lot of factors played in, what the market's been doing over the last couple of months. The bond rating that we got, the insurance, moving it up to a AA with the bond insurance, the aggressiveness of the underwriters that the council approved back in April, Siebert and Hilltop Securities. So if this item is approved, we have a delivery date of roughly July the 23rd. You'll receive in your project fund $17,210,610. Row 112 through 131, that is your principal and interest total per year. And at the very bottom of 143, column E, 22,233,000. That is about $1,170,000 less than what we're expecting back in April. And the reason it's less, again, it's the lower interest rate that we received yesterday when the bonds were sold. So the portion that the EDC and the PUD are going to be responsible for on column H. So on column H, those are the principal and interest total for principal and interest amount, and the total for the EDC. Their average payment is about $118,000 a year. Column I, the average total is about $157,000 roughly a year for the PUD. And on column J, we're 112. We have a negative amount on column J of negative $469,714. We're expecting an INS transfer of over $500,000. And the reason why it's lower, again, is the lower interest rate that we received yesterday. So in order to transfer, if you transfer $469,000 from the INS reserve account, the INS tax rate you'll consider approving for next year, the increase would be roughly 2.6 cents on column M, and your INS tax rate on column L will go from 9.55 to 12.15 cents. And again, we won't know for certain until, I would say, July the 20th through 25th, when you receive the final appraised net assessed valuation from the appraisal district. Once we receive the final certified net amount, we'll plug it in on column B, row 112, and then we'll know exactly how much money you're going to transfer from the INS account on column J, and see if the city still wants to increase that 2.6 cents. And the rest of the information is pretty much the same on column J of what we projected. And on column L and M, we have a phase in of the interest and sinking fund tax rate. We have about 2.6, 2.5 for about a total of 5 years, followed by a 2-cent increase in fiscal year ending 2025. And Mayor, if you turn to page 4, everyone, this is kind of the timetable you went over earlier. If this item is approved, we will close the financing on July the 23rd. City will receive $17,210,000. On page 5, we have the working group participants, the issuer, City of Rio Grande City, financial advisor, bond counsel, Winstead PC, Ricardo Perez Law Firm. The paying agent is Wells Fargo. The underwriters are Siebert, Williams, Shank and Company, and I believe Mr. Geraldo Perez is still on the Zoom call, and Hilltop Securities. Underwriters Council, Lock Lord. And again, the city received a bond rating from S&P reaffirm an A, and it got upgraded because of the bond insurance we received AGM to a AA. But Mayor, real quickly, I want to say congratulations to the commission and to the staff. This is something that hasn't been talked about the last few months or even the last year. These are projects that have been talked about several years back, and now everything fell into place. As Mayor, you stated, Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Ramirez, audit fell into place. You're starting to see, the vision and the dedication, the commitment by the commission and the staff working together to achieve all your goals. All of that fell into place, and this is what transpired. The ending result, a really good low interest rate and a great bond rating. So again, this is years of hard work, not by your consultants, myself or Mr. Martinez or the underwriters. It is y'all, the commission and the staff, and we applaud y'all and congratulate y'all. Our recommendation is this item be approved, but again, congratulations for all your hard work.
So we're officially AA.
It will, with bond insurance, sir, on this financing, with bond insurance, you have a AA. Your underlying rating is still an A, but as Mr. Pettis said, y'all set everything into place. Gradually, you increase your reserve fund, your sales tax starts going up, your property value start increasing, you start seeing more businesses, sales tax start increasing. That's going to put pressure on S&P to gradually start moving up your bond rating. So with bond insurance, You paid a little extra to get a AA because it's a safety net that if the city can't ever make their bond payments, the insurance company will make them until you get your feet back on the ground. But yes, sir, on this financing, the insurance got you that AA rating. And congratulations to the entire commission.
Thank you, Mr. Tijerina, and thank you, everyone. And with that, we're ready to move on this item.
Also move to approve, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 4A by Commissioner Ramirez. We have a second?
Second, Mayor.
Have a second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, raise your left hand. Motion passes. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mayor, Commissioners.
Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Robert.
Staff. Thank you so much. It's hey, kudos to many individuals. Obviously, it takes a tremendous effort by departments, by outside entities as well, and it's a great day moving forward, and where all these major projects at Rio Grande City will see very soon, and looking forward to the fruition and final steps in this whole process. But again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Y'all take care, stay safe, and have a great night, evening. Thank you all so much. Appreciate
Robert,
the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next business in order is item 3A, which is discussion and possible action to approve and adopt a City of Rio Grande City purchasing and procurement policy to require City Commission approval for all purchases over $5,000, with the exception of purchases related to matters of life and death or emergency water repairs. Mr. Perez.
Yes, Mayor, this was a recommendation from commissioners that came in last week. And so legal put a verbiage together for you guys to consider. The only thing that it's mentioning is water. It does not mention sewer. The other thing I wanted to kind of mention, that be aware from the system side, it's a pretty simple change to add a different individual to be capable of approving such POs. The only thing is the system does not classify or differentiate between the types. It will consider the dollar amount. So for example, in this case, if you were to go with a straight $5,000, you will get everything that's over $5,000 and greater. That needs to be approved by somebody. The next step, once the system is updated to take that change, we'll have to designate a computer where it's going to be done from, because you do require Encode to be installed in the computer. So that individual or individuals will have to sign on every day to make sure that anything that drops in there that needs a review from you or whoever, that they sign on and approve them as they come in, system-wise.
Okay, so for example, there are items that we already, like utilities. I mean, if we're gonna pay light, I mean, the light we already pay, so there's no need for the council to have to approve the light bill. Or is there a need for the council to approve the light bill? Because we're gonna get a light bill on a basis or whenever we do. So those items, I don't think, unless, what do you all think, commissioners? Because what we don't wanna do is bog down the process either, where we're getting ourselves now bogged down because we're having to approve every single item. But utility, for example, again, payments that we already have on a scheduled basis, those I don't think should have to go through council. And is there a way that we can do it to where those type of items, those are regular items. I mean, it's not like we have to. Does the commission want to see those as well? I mean, what do you all think? How do we make it still run efficiently, but at the same time, not curtail ourselves to the point where we're having to light bills? It's like, come on. I mean, a light bill is a light bill. Those are automatic. Or
you won't be able to differentiate or separate those. The system will only consider a dollar amount.
But why not?
I can give you.
It's not possible to do that. I mean,
that would be
so
an Encode question.
Yeah, but those
That would
items can be
be-
pulled out. Those items can be pulled out by yourself, the city manager, or Mr. Cantu. I mean, obviously, we don't need to be bringing up those utility payments that are recurring every month to the city commissioner meetings. I think that the intent of this item was to bring up like new purchases, over 5,000. So we can be aware of what is being purchased and for what purposes. But other than that, I think that like the mayor stated, anything that's recurring, any utilities, I think that's just part of the process, and y'all can pull those out and pay those as needed.
I asked that question for our main code representative, and I'll ask him again. At the time I asked him last week, they said it would only take a dollar amount.
And I'm sorry, I think what Mr. Perez means is anything over 5,000, somebody has to go into the computer and approve it. It doesn't necessarily have to go through a commission meeting, but somebody does have to go in there and manually approve it through Encode. I guess whenever.
Approve it, right? Don't you all have to approve it anyway? Who does the approval already?
Yes, but it will require a third approval.
Right, but there are some items that, you already approved, for example, utilities and anything less than those you already approved. Then do we need to have a list of items? For example, major things in emergencies, for example. But tell you what, why don't we figure this out so we can make sure that we don't bog it down even more by creating unnecessary additional steps, because the main focus of this is how do we, for the commission to know where we're spending our money, period.
Well, you also keep in mind, it requires one of your signatures. So every purchase requires one of you to sign the checks. So nothing will be purchased without you or somebody signing a check on it.
Because we already do that, but but not everybody, because let's say one commissioner signs off, and what about the rest? How do we know some of these items are being purchased as a whole? So let's figure that out too, because let's not make it more complicated than it needs to be. Commissioners, what are your all thoughts with this? We need to make sure we iron it out, and that way.
Mayor, we know what we're getting at with this, and there's no need to make an issue out of it. It's real simple and to the point. We don't need to make it difficult. What are we making it difficult for? There's no need to discuss this. What is essential is essential. Light bills need to be paid. Why are we making it so technical? If I want to make it technical, it's fine, but there's no need to make it technical. We have a purpose why we're doing it, Mayor, and that's for us to know what's being spent. And that's basically it. Now we're making technical. Light bill, water bill. It's like we know where we're heading it. We know where we came from, and we just want to be aware of what's going on. There's no need to make it technical. We got the signatures. Everything's being done. We put everybody on notice what needs to be done, and let's just fix it. That's it. That's all it is. Just fix it.
Okay, so what you're saying is, all right, so moving on. Okay, so we can go ahead and factor all that out, Mr. Perez, so we can, but commissioners, do we have a motion then at this time?
I so move, man.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 3A, right?
Mayor, I have a quick question. So I think there needs to be going back to, there needs to be specification as to, it talks about water repairs, but like Mr. Pettis said, does this also include sewer repairs in those emergencies? And also, to answer Commissioner Jones' questions, it's because for the PUD, we have bills that run over $5,000. And those are bills that come monthly. That's the question that was raised. Are they gonna have to be brought to for the council for third approval, or do we continue processing them as normal? Those are just questions that we have as a department. It's not trying to make it more technical or complicated. Those are just things that we need to iron out so that we know how to proceed. Apparently, from the research I did, this item was brought to the council years ago, and it was already voted on, if I'm not mistaken. But there was a situation with some pumps that were purchased because of emergency situation. That's why I think there was an issue in regards to those purchases over $5,000 in emergency situations. And you guys might know more about it because you were here, obviously. But apparently this has already been brought to the council for approval, and it was already voted on.
All I say is, if it's a necessity and it needs to get get it done. But things that need to be, purchased, we're talking about purchases, pumps. If pump breaks down and it needs to go, y'all need to go get it, and it's an emergency. It's assistance for the residents of Rio Grande City. It's common sense.
Okay, so let's backtrack then. So where's Mr. Villarreal? As far as the language, do we need to change the language to encompass this and not make it too complicated here? What do we need to do? Because the language obviously is important as to, does it give us flexibility to do that? Because it is not be too inflexible here either. I mean, what would the language need to say for there to be some flexibility where there are, I mean, I know here an emergency, but then there might be other, going back to utilities, going back to other items.
Mayor, if it makes it easier, Mayor, let's get it right, Mayor. We all know where we're going on this. Let's get it done right. It's already been brought up to Mr. Perez's attention. Let's get the wording right, and let's just table it from next month, and let's do it right. Let's just do it right. It's been brought to Mr. Perez's attention, and let's just do it right. Let's get the wording done right.
Okay, so is that your motion, Commissioner?
That's my motion to table it, Mayor, to get the wording right.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second the motion to table it for now.
have a motion to table item, is it 3A at this time by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Ramirez. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, raise your left hand. All right, so on that one, Mr. Perez, just let's get the language correctly so we can address all those little details that way it doesn't bog down our system, but you know where we're headed with this. So let's see how we can massage the language to where it incorporates all that in Mr. Cruz's concerns there, and any other department that might have similar concerns. How do we coordinate it to make sure that it is done correctly and the language allows for some flexibility on that?
Okay.
Okay, moving on to item 5, resolutions, 5A. Discussion and possible action to approve resolution number 2020-15-B, amending for clarification previously adopted resolution number 2020-15A, which authorized the submission of a grant application for funding through Operation Stone Garden 2019, U.S. Department of Homeland Security for grant period 4/01/2020 to 2/28/2021.
Mayor, Commissioners, for this one, we got Chief Castillo.
Yes, Mayor, on this one, with the COVID situations, the dates changed, and we had presented this before, but the date was we got it wrong. So this is just a correction of the submission of this document, and that's for the overtime money and the Sky Tower and some licensed readers. So that just needs to be changed. That's correct. It's a date that says there.
Any questions, Commissioners? If not, do we entertain a motion at this time?
I so move to approve, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a
Second motion.
by Commissioner Ramirez? Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, raise your left hand. Motion passes. Next item is 6, contracts and agreements. Letter A, discussion and possible action to approve contract with Pyro Shows of Texas for display on July 11th, 2020 at the Basilio Villarreal Municipal Park. I know on this one we had talked about postponement, and so at this point, would we just, Mr. Perez, wasn't there a postponement on this?
Yes, sir. And we discussed it in the EDC meeting. We wanted to bring it to the city meeting. We got Ms. Hernandez online. She had made all these plans, and of course, with the situation we're under right now with COVID-19, recommendation was to postpone it and possibly consider 16 de septiembre. So Ms. Hernandez, you have anything else you'd like to add?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Basically, yes, we did discuss this at the EC meeting last week. Just wanted to follow up with you guys and let you know that I went ahead and contacted the provider that was going to be putting on the fireworks show. Let them know that we would be postponing it. Understandably so, they were, of course, wanting to know what date and things of that nature, but considering everything that's going on, it's very hard to tell. I didn't know if at this point you all wanted to approve it with a postponement date pending, or just table it and bring it back whenever we are ready to set a date.
Yeah, I would rather we table it for now because I don't want to commit to a specific date. We don't know where this pandemic is going. Obviously, it's not getting any better. So for us to commit to a date is I think, too soon for now. I would prefer that we table it until further notice.
Okay, that way I can go ahead and.
You know, and I agree with Commissioner Ramirez. However, moving forward, if we are planning to potentially this year, I know we've had our 16 de septiembre events in Viva Mexico, and maybe because of the current circumstance, maybe something to consider that this year we can celebrate Freedom Fest, do a bi-national celebration of both countries. Again, because of the current situation that we could not celebrate July 4th, maybe that's something to at least consider down the road and make a first ever bi-national fest of sorts. I don't know. Again, I'm just thinking out loud. So think about it. You all decide. You all are the experts in that matter. So maybe that's something we can consider. Anyhow, but I'll leave it up to you and to the experts in those fields. All right. So,
okay.
So we have a motion to table by Commissioner Ramirez.
Yes.
Got a second, Mayor.
We have a second by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, raise your left hand. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Next item is 6B, discussion and possible action to approve the lease agreement with Norma Sepulveda, Main Street Nutrition for rental premises at 408 East Main Street.
Mayor and Commissioners, we got Miss Norma Sepulveda that had set up a lease with us, and she never really got in there due to construction-related delays. I've got Ms. Guillen available to probably elaborate a little bit more as to where she really is and when she's going to open up. Ms. Guillen?
Yeah, sure. Mayor, Commissioners, so Ms. Sepulveda entered into a contract with the city for the suite, the Main Street office, and a condition of that lease involved some installments of a counter and a sink at that space that the EDC approved to do. And we completed that work. Can't give you the exact time, but it took us several weeks to get that counter and sink in place. And we turned that over to her, and it just never really opened. And I'm not sure why, but as far as I know, the work that the EDC approved on that suite, which was the installation of the counter, some electrical work to make sure that the plugs were accessible to the counter, and the installation of a sink, and all of these improvements to meet the standards of code enforcement were done shortly after the contract went into place last year. And her nature of business is like a shake shop, got specialty shakes and teas. That's I'm not sure if that's still the intent of the business, but I know that is something that she had expressed to us. We applied for some support from the EDC to help with those improvements.
When does she plan to open?
I don't know. I don't have an estimated open date. I mean, it's ready. She can open as early as tomorrow if this contract goes into effect today. Nothing, I might want I would advise her to consult with the code enforcement office and the fire department again, just to make sure that it, meets their occupancy standards. Again, we installed the counter and the sink, and all of that in accordance with the rules from code enforcement and the fire chief. So I think we're okay, unless there's something else that they need us to get it to occupy. But I don't think there's anything pending.
Okay. Would entertain a
Mayor.
this time or questions?
Real quick. Mayor, I just strongly recommend to Ms. Guillen, I would really like the renters to be present when they're getting these contracts, Mayor, and when they're renewing, just in case we have questions like this, we can ask them directly, Mayor, instead of putting Ms. Guillen on the spot. I really would appreciate, I would like for anybody that's going to go into those rentals, to be able to be present. So if we have questions, we'll be able to ask them.
And Commissioner Jones, thank you for saying that. I was not fully aware of her intent to renew. We have this standard policy for the EDC where anyone that's seeking support from the EDC is to be made, to make themselves available before the board to answer any questions. Again, I figured Ms. Sepulveda would be on the call as her lease was up on the agenda, but I can only share with you what I know.
Yeah. I would just urge, again, just for them to try to make an effort. It's their business, and I don't want to go beyond and have to table it until they're actually present. But it makes it a lot easier for us if we have any questions. Where these businesses are heading and how they're doing financially, and questions like that could be asked by the commission. So it's just a suggestion. It'll make it a lot easier for us instead of putting you on the spot.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, yes, Ms. Sepulveda was speaking to me as well about that contract. And I was speaking with Ms. Guillen, getting familiar with the Tijerina rentals. And she was aware of the meeting, but I guess she didn't join on, but she was aware because she did want for you all to see her contract, and she was interested in renting again.
And she was here last time that we approved that. She was, however, good point, and it is fair. So just to make sure that as we're moving forward with type of contracts for the future, just to make sure that they are available should there be any questions from the commission. So moving forward. So at this time then, commissioners, do we entertain a motion at this time?
I so move to approve, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Jones.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
We have a second by Commissioner Ramirez. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying by raising your right hand. All those opposed to raise your left hand. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Guillen. Next business and orders item E6E. Possible action to approve change order number 2, 5-Star Clark Construction, PWDB 73644 lift station project.
Mayor and Commissioners, as you know, we've been working with trying to secure that property on the last lift station. I've got Ms. Guillen and Ms. Baez is also on the line. She can probably elaborate a little bit more on this change order.
Commissioner and Mayor, the change order does not add any funds to the contract. It just adds 6 months of time. Still working through the process of the condemnation for the property. I'm not aware of the timeline due to the COVID and the court situation. I don't know if Calixto Real could maybe share some of that information on the schedule. Every item, the well and the pumps have been ordered. The contractor has them stored. It's ready to get constructed. We just access to the land.
So the change order is, it's more of a time issue then, right?
Yes, sir.
Where do we stand with TCQ on this, Mayor?
The,
Let me answer. To answer your question, Commissioner Jones, we actually had a meeting with them last week. They are well aware of where we are with this. They were pleased that all the equipment to the actual lift station is purchased. We actually sent a letter out on Monday, official letter requesting an extension because of this as well too. So TCQ is well aware of the situation and that we're working to try to close this out as soon as possible.
So what's really just pending on this one? It's the action of the property.
Yeah, so Calixto's been working on trying to get the condemnation going, and probably he could probably give us an update. I know there was a committee that was put together. Now we're waiting on the judges to when they're going to meet so they can decide on the condemnation as to how we're going forward. Calixto, are you on? Calixto? In any event, Mayor, they do have a committee, and we're going through the courts right now, waiting for that committee to meet to make a decision and whether we're able to proceed in taking over the property and making a fair market value offer.
Internally too, as well, Mayor, we've met, myself and Mr. Perez met with the engineer to come up with a backup plan just in case this was going to keep on prolonging. Obviously, we had a phone conference with TCQ last week, and the engineer was coming up with a backup plan. At a worst case scenario, this is still going to take us a couple months from now, building on the current existing right of way that we have right now. But that's not what we want to do. We obviously want to secure the property. So we do have a backup plan if this doesn't go through, but everything looks like it's moving forward finally. So we're just waiting to see what the outcome is.
So at this point is in the courts. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The condemnation process, I've served the condemnation processes, and what it is really they meet, they hear both sides, and then they determine at that point what would be a fair market value for that property. And it should not take too long. Granted, right now it's a COVID pandemic and whatnot, and that might be the reason why it might be taking long. So the good thing is it's already at that stage, and TCEQ is aware that it's already in the condemnation processes, right? At this point, it's already in that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That way they know that, and not in fact impacted by in a sense, having any type of negative notes on this lift station. But as long as we're already at that point, then there's already a light at the end of the tunnel, removing this and making sure that they get fair market value price. And I don't think they'll probably be too happy with a fair market value price. Probably we're better off just accepting the price that we had offered them. But nonetheless, so be it. So moving on with this then, do we entertain at this time? Commissioner?
I so move to approve.
Okay, we have motion to approve item 6E by Commissioner Jones.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
Have a second by Commissioner Ramirez. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your left hand. Motion passes. No, I did some moving around. Did I miss any items, Mr. Perez, from any of the agenda? Since we moved around quite a bit.
No,
No.
sir. I've been checking them all off. And this, Ms. Garza, have you identified any? I checked everything off already.
No, everything's checked off.
Okay, before we go on to executive session at this time, item 7, executive session, chapter 551, Texas Government Code, section 551. That's .071, consultation with attorney, section 551.074, personnel matters. Letter B, consultation with city attorney relating to personnel matters, section 1.071 and section 551.074, Texas Government Code. It is 7:32 p.m. We're going to disconnect from this meeting and go on to the executive meeting.
Yes.
executive session. It is 8:29 p.m. Item 8, reconvene into regular session in consideration of action matters discussed during the executive session, including the following. Letter A, discussion and possible action regarding matters. Record, there's no action on this item. And at this time, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Ramirez,
Second, Mayor.
second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, raise your left. Motion passes. Meeting is adjourned. It is 8:30 p.m. Thank you so much for your time.